So I'd like to start proceedings this morning by introducing Dr. Angus Patterson, the Deputy CEO of the National Research Foundation, to give us some welcoming remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, a really special welcome to all of the distinguished guests. In particular, the Minister, Professor Bladen Zamonde, who unfortunately can't be here, but has sent a pre-recorded message wishing us all well, as well as the executive leadership of the various agencies such as the DSTI, the DFFE, as well as the NRF. Some special international guests, and I won't be able to go through all of them, but in particular Dr. Trot Duno from Brazil, who did Ocean20 as well, and Mr. Eric Gorensky, head of the Ocean UN Global Compact, as well as all the other distinguished researchers, academics, NGO leaders, and of course the next generation of researchers. I've got the great privilege of opening and launching Ocean20 South Africa. Within the National Research Foundation, all of our research infrastructure, be it telescopes or cyclotrons or things like that, are under my purview. But as a marine biologist, I jumped at the opportunity of coming here because normally I face a range of physicists, and today when I look around the audience I see a bunch of friends. And people that I've worked with over the last 20 years. So it really is a privilege to be here to open this special day. South Africa hosts the G20 in 2025 under the themes of solidarity, equality and sustainability, very apt themes for the current world that we live in. And we represent not only the country but the whole African continent, with the African Union being a G20 member in 2023. Ocean20 is a social track under the engagement groups of the G20, and as such, it should be driven by societal stakeholders to the benefit of society. The ocean is the lifeblood of our planet. It regulates our climate, provides food and livelihoods for billions, and is a source of immense economic potential. Yet we know the health of the oceans is under threat from climate change, overexploitation and pollution. And as we face these challenges, we must recognize the critical role that society plays in protecting and sustaining our oceans, often a thing that we forgot in the past and one that we really need to work on. Society is often, and really should be, at the forefront of ocean conservation, fisheries management and coastal community resilience. And therefore it's really good to see a broad spectrum of society here, ranging from NGOs through to government, other interested parties, academics, researchers. So it's really a big welcome here. I really do wish you fruitful deliberations as you discuss the initial and potential ocean actions. And it will be some of the reports that I'll be looking forward to reading after getting a little tired of quarks and photons and things like this. It's really nice to be back in the marine space. And I really do wish you a really good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. Now we would like to play a video for you, a message from Professor Bladen Zamonde. So Dr. Bladen Zamonde is South Africa's Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, a respected politician, educator and sociologist. He has played a key role in shaping the country's higher education and research landscape. With a strong academic background, including a PhD in sociology, Dr. Zamonde has served in various ministerial roles, including as the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, and the Minister of Transport. He is also a long-standing leader in the South African Communist Party and a dedicated advocate for education, innovation, and social justice. His leadership has been instrumental in advancing scientific research, fostering innovation, and ensuring that South Africa's knowledge economy drives inclusive development. It is an honor to welcome Minister Zamonde to this forum.
Good morning, distinguished guests and partners. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the Ocean20 South Africa installment as part of South Africa G20 presidency. I would have loved to be physically present to deliver this address, but unfortunately, due to other official commitments, it was not practical. As a country, we regard our oceans and related environmental resources as critical for enhancing our knowledge of our natural world and as a means of generating sustainable livelihoods and advancing our country's economic development. Therefore, as South Africa takes on the G20 presidency for 2025, we embrace the opportunity to advance global ocean stewardship from a uniquely strategic position, surrounded by 3 ocean basins and shaped by the powerful currents that influence our weather and climate, fisheries and livelihoods. As we take over the G20 presidency and Ocean20 from Brazil, a country that we share a strong partnership with in the area of scientific research, it is worth mentioning that in 2017, my predecessor, together with our Brazilian counterpart then, signed the South Africa South-South Framework for Scientific and Technical Cooperation in the South and Tropical Atlantic and Southern Oceans Cooperation Agreement. I'm also informed that Dr. Janice Trott is part of the audience today. I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Dr. Trott, for the role you played in elevating the status of Ocean20 within the social track when Brazil was hosting the G20 presidency in 2024. And I further express my appreciation for emphasis on continuing the long-standing bilateral cooperation with South Africa. I look forward to the enhancement of the work you initiated while creating an Ocean20 social engagement group to facilitate discussions and relationships between the countries and regions which form part of the G20. South Africa's cooperation with Brazil constituted a South-South plan for scientific cooperation in oceanic and Antarctic research and became one of the most prolific conduits for international scientific cooperation with countries in the North. This cooperation further laid the foundations for the All-Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance expansion to other African states. In line with this and the objectives of our white paper on science, technology, and innovation, as South Africa will remain committed to increasing the participation of other African states. In fact, we intend to roll out some of our Ocean20 initiatives in the other African engagements, taking advantage of those planned African scientific gatherings. We believe that South Africa's G20 presidency presents us with a unique opportunity not only to expand economic opportunities for coastal communities, but also to lead critical discussions on ocean governance, blue finance, scientific innovation, and ocean literacy. Above all, we must champion the sustainable use and protection of our oceans for generations to come, especially because we are experiencing unprecedented times where societies are looking at science for precise solutions to emerging challenges. Given the multitude of challenges we face, which include global inequality and the deleterious impact of climate change, we are of the firm belief that meaningful and equitable international cooperation has become increasingly important for the protection of our sustainable use of our environmental resources. We therefore need to strengthen all scientific efforts that are aimed at finding joint solutions that involve both scientists, researchers, policymakers, and ordinary communities from the global north and the global south. In conclusion, we regard the Ocean20 platform as a critical enabler for the development of sustainable and mutually beneficial cooperation in the ocean. And it is therefore my hope that your deliberations will produce well thought out and transformative ocean actions. I wish you a productive conference and look forward to the outcomes of your deliberations. I thank you.
So at this stage, excuse me, I'd like to invite to the stage Mr. Ashley Johnson, the Acting Chief Director for the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, to give a few words of welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished delegates, and I think the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation has summed up everything quite well and precise. But on behalf of the Minister and the Director General of the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, good morning and welcome to the launch of Ocean20 as a social track within the greater G20, which South Africa is president of at the moment and taking over from our neighbors, Brazil, on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. South Africa specifically chose the themes of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, as we see our aspirations as not only for the country, but for the continent, as well as all developing nations around the world. As a truly maritime nation surrounded by vast ocean space, it is not surprising that one of the priorities within the Environment and Sustainability Working Group is the ocean. We are a nation intrinsically bonded to our maritime environment for our security, economy, development, as well as many social benefits we derive from it. When we look closer at the other 4 priorities within the Environment and Sustainability Working Group, namely 1, biodiversity and conservation, 2, land degradation, desertification and drought, 3, chemicals and waste, and then 4, climate change and air quality. The 5th being ocean and coasts, is the natural link across them all and interwoven into so many of the expected outcomes. As the receiving environment of many of the impacts of human-induced pressures, the historical role of the ocean has been placed under enormous strain. This historical role has always been to try and establish a balance in the Earth system by either absorbing excessive emissions from the atmosphere or transferring heat around the globe. However, this has been a losing battle due to our unsustainable actions for constant development. And most often, if not always, the impacts of climate change have affected the most vulnerable people in society, those that have contributed so little to this existential threat we face. South Africa's geographic position is both a blessing and a curse. A curse because of the vastness of the ocean space that surrounds us, where so little is yet known as we try and unravel this changing environment. A curse because extreme events that are generated across the Southern Ocean hits us directly. However, at the same time, it's a blessing. And that comes from the fact that it provides unimaginable opportunities for sustainable economic development, job creation, poverty alleviation. Yet all this can only be addressed with the right science and information. When we look at the vastness of the ocean space, partnerships are essential. This cannot be tackled by a single country, and we all know this. The ocean affects all of us, irrespective of where we find ourselves. Partnerships are key. Society is key. And therefore it is our sincere wish that Ocean20 will unlock those partnerships to bring about meaningful change and help the world better support the outcomes and objectives, particularly of Sustainable Development Goal 14, life below water. Because as in the Environment and Sustainability Working Group, SDG 14 weaves its way through so many other SDGs. We wish you well with the hope that we find the solutions we so desperately need to address the multitude of ocean issues as it relates to its health, conservation, and protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Mr. Eric Gorecki, who is the head of oceans for the United Nations Global Compact, to give us a few words of welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear ocean friends, good morning to you all. My name is Erik Erski, and I'm the head of the ocean work at the UN Global Compact. And on behalf of the UN Global Compact, we are deeply honored to be co-convener of this engagement group. The Global Compact is the private sector arm of the UN, and we have about 25,000 member companies around the world and over 80 country offices. It's chaired by Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN. And I like to say that it's not because we are very good at PR that so many companies are engaged. And it's really booming the last few years. Only in China, we have more than 2,000 companies joining us. It's because companies, they look for guidance, standards. Businesses like a rules-based world order, science-based targets to create a level playing field. It de-risks operations and investments. And at the UN Global Compact, we established the Ocean Workstream back in 2018 because we saw the need for better understanding and alignment of the potential of the ocean solutions to all the 17 SDGs. Not only number 14, but all of them. How can shipping, offshore energy, fisheries, ports, seaweed, coastal communities contribute to the world we want? And the many hundred members of our group worldwide want to be part of the solution, creating a market for green shipping, renewable offshore wind, sea cables, healthy seafood, and a plastic-free ocean. Excellencies, I want to give a strong support for the South African leadership for this year's G20. This year's ambitions, as we have already heard, equality, solidarity, and sustainability, this is actually what businesses all around the world tell us that they're calling for. This is what they think is good for business and the economy. And the G20 was established to address global economic challenges, to open a dialogue on what measures should be taken to solve them and how we together can build resilient economies. And G20 has proven to be a successful initiative. It's instrumental in addressing the 2008 financial crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, debt relief measures, and establishing instruments like the Finance Stability Board and TCFDs. Fast forward to today. The world is facing an increasing number of challenges with deep economic consequences. We are in the middle of a critical climate crisis affecting all parts of the world. We are experiencing biodiversity loss of unprecedented scale. Economic inequalities are again increasing, and global governance is under pressure. This is not good for the economy, it's not good for governments, it's not good for people, and it's not good for our planet. These challenges must be solved for the benefit of us all, and we must solve them together. G20 play a key role in finding solutions. And we are very grateful to the government of Brazil for initiating the first formal Ocean20 engagement group last year. And I had the privilege to co-convene that with truly inspiring colleagues from around the world, including Dr. Janice Trotta, who will speak here later. And the key recommendations from last year's G20 was built on the Brazilian president's ambitions and with input from the ocean communities all over the world. And we saw a community of scientists, governments, corporates, financial institutions, organizations, and individuals deeply engaged. The main conclusions and recommendations called for more science collaboration, a well-governed ocean, and using the ocean better for zero emissions transport, harvesting of renewable energy, and manage our blue food resources so we can actually feed the world with healthy proteins. I'm sure Janice will talk more about that later. I think it's important in these new strange times, I would say, to highlight some of the multilateral progress of the last few years and of the few UN processes actually maturing to conclusion. The ocean is actually not doing so bad. Even though the plastic treaty is still suffering at a standstill and the seabed mining code is struggling, we have seen that the US has come to agreements on the ocean, our greatest global common, on the BBNJ, an extremely important deal for biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, and we hope to see that being ratified soon. And, of course, on the International Maritime Organization's greenhouse gas strategy back in 2023. And already, next week, there is a crucial vote in London on the measures shipping must take to meet net zero by 2030. And it's really highly encouraging. We are looking at a deal regulating an industry moving over 80% of world trade to decarbonize. And I hope all governments support an ambitious deal to ensure a financial mechanism supporting a just transition, to make it inclusive for the global south as well as the global north. The shipping companies have, together with us at the UN Global Compact, managed to put a maritime just transition as part of the deal back in 2023 to promote exactly what South Africa is now promoting: sustainability, equality, and solidarity. It's good for business and it's good for the economy. And the ocean will play a critical role in the global economy if we get it right. And when I look at this crowd here today, I know that we are not divided by oceans, but connected by the ocean. My pledge to you all today, as we start this great journey toward the G20 summit in November, and with our Ocean20 meeting, is to have an open mind, to have inclusive discussions and fact-based arguments. And I look forward to getting to know you all better through the day. Thank you so much.
As part of the Ocean20 being a social track, we have engaged with a number of other social engagement tracks under the G20. And at this stage, we would like to invite to the stage, sorry, I was a bit of Ms. Yanga Malotana from the University of Pretoria to give us an Ocean Youth statement, followed by Nanya Bulamula, who will give us a statement of support on behalf of Women 20. Thank you. There we go. Molweni, bonjour, bon dia, good morning. Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Yanga Malotana, and for this moment I'd like you to remove the University of Pretoria affiliation. I am just standing here today as a young person in South Africa who would like to share just one position of where young people are standing when it comes to our ocean. I want you to picture two oceans. The one that's close right here, the Cape Town oceans, the pristine, photographed, the darling of travel magazines. But then there's my ocean, and the one I'm familiar with, which is the Wild Coast, where cows graze on beaches, where rivers meet the sea in muddy hugs, and where you swim in water so alive you can taste the salt of 1,000 ancestors. I know in the English tongue we call it the Wild Coast, but I like the Xhosa description a little bit better. Kufuneke ucele imvume yokungena elwandle. Roughly translated to, you must ask for permission before entering the ocean. In my culture, ulwandle, or the ocean, is what binds us to a life that is untamed and unapologetically real. I would argue that we are sitting in this room today because we have moved in the ocean without ever asking it for its permission.
This ocean of the wild coast is what taught me resilience. One that goes beyond the Instagram perfect sunsets, but has got the storms that reshape the cliffs and the fishermen who read the waves like the elders speak in Proverbs. That's the ocean we're fighting for. Not just the postcard, but the wild, the working, the one woven into our bones. Now, I didn't always know the science behind the ocean's magic, and that credit goes to Sir David Attenborough. Thanks to him, I became that annoying friend who ruins movie night by pausing to explain how mangroves store carbon or why deep sea vents represent cities underwater. But his real gift was showing me that facts alone will not save our oceans. We need stories that make people care. Who tells these stories? Hopefully, we do. The ones who've seen the dolphins dance with fishing boats, who know that sustainability is not just a buzzword, but is a difference between a full net and an empty stomach. It is us, early career professionals, the youth, the thinkers in this room, the doers, and hopefully the ones who recognize the fact that we need to bridge science, policy, art, and activism. With this cultural understanding of the ocean and the love of storytelling, it came as no surprise in my journey in researching the South African energy crisis to be influenced by this valuing of the ocean. Because think about it, offshore wind farms, they go beyond engineering. They're culture, they're jobs for those wild coast villages. There are potential of light being provided in schools where kids in my province, one of the poorest provinces in this country, still do their homework by candlelight. We need thinkers who see all of that, those who can chat with the engineers and elders, those who respect the data and the way the wind smells before a storm. It's about the balance of ecology, economics, and equity. We can't just throw tech at the ocean and hope for the best. We need transdisciplinary thinkers, people who speak the language of the data and communities, who see fishermen as co-scientists and the policymakers as allies. And let's just be clear, youth do not need permission to lead. We're the ones coding the track apps that are looking at the poachers. We're the ones that are turning ocean plastic into art. Most importantly, we are the ones who will fight for a seat at the table, flip it, and turn it into a picnic for everyone. Because inclusion is not a charity, it's about survival. Fishermen, we need to see them as the original ocean scientists. Grandmothers, they're the Google Maps of marine weather. Their voices aren't just nice to have, they are non-negotiable. This year, South Africa hosts the G20. We call to act on 3 pillars: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. For Oceans20, that means no more ocean solutions drafted in air-conditioned rooms while our coastal communities fight for crumbs. Solidarity is about honoring the wild coast fishers as data guardians. Equality is about ensuring the green jobs reach the rural towns and not just green jobs in the Cape Town boardrooms. And sustainability, it's not just about the carbon credits, it's about cultural survival. When Ugogo is teaching her children to harvest mussels without stripping the rock bare, that's sustainability in its purest form. The G20's theme is not just a slogan, it is a demand. Include the excluded, listen to the silence, and let the ocean keepers lead. So how do we win this? I hope as we go into our discussions, and if you don't remember anything else I said today, just take away these 5 things. 1, we need to be stubbornly transdisciplinary. Scientists, find Ugogo, who knows when the sardines run. Artists, turn the data into drama that moves hearts. No more solo hero nonsense. The ocean connects us all, and we need to act like it. Number 2, pass the mic, smash the podium. If your panel looks like a colonial painting, you've lost the plot. Bring in the fisher, the teen activist, the cow herder turned into an eco-guide. Number 3, for our young people, demand a seat or just bring a foldable chair. Stop waiting for invites. Crash the party with better ideas. 4, protect like ancestors, but let's innovate like the apocalypse is just around the corner. Let us blend ancient wisdom with cutting-edge science. Solar-powered fishing boats, yes. AI tracking ocean plastics, yes. Traditional knowledge guiding marine parks, absolutely. Those are all the sweet spots. And lastly, let us celebrate every win, even the tiny ones. A restored mangrove, a shift in policy, heck, a kid who just found out how much they love the ocean by being at it for the very first time in their life. That's a win. And throw a proper Wild Coast party. Cows are optional, of course. The ocean isn't just a pretty backdrop. It's our teammate. So let's fight for it with the same wild, wise, and unstoppable spirit of the Wild Coast. Ngozi, obrigada, thank you.
It's going to be an incredibly difficult act to follow. So good luck to everybody who's coming after that. And now I want to introduce Dr. Nanya, who's going to give us statements of support from Women20.
Greetings to everyone in beautiful Cape Town. My name is Nanya Bolamula, and I'm the head of delegation of Women20. Women20 is an engagement group of the G20 in the social track. The main responsibility of Women20 is to mainstream gender equality and women's economic empowerment into the G20 processes. We have been doing this for 10 years. This year we celebrate our 10-year anniversary. Oceans20 is a very important addition to the engagement groups, and I want to congratulate Brazil for deciding to create Oceans20 as an engagement group last year. The planet needs to be healthy, and for the planet to be healthy and for people to be healthy, we need healthy oceans. This is the cycle of life. Women depend on the oceans. Women conserve. Women are the ones who feed their families. And therefore, the blue economy is of great importance to the W20 engagement group. And we will be looking at these issues as well as the green economy and circular economy while we work with our task teams this year. I am happy that I was able to send this video message to you because I feel very strongly that we must work together to succeed. This year will have its own challenges, but at the same time, I know that it will have many, many successes.
Thank you, everybody. So that concludes the introductory remarks section of our program. And what we'd like to do now is get on to what do we mean by ocean actions? What do we mean to do through Ocean20? So to lead that charge, I'm going to invite Janice, Dr. Janice Trudeau, to the stage. We've all had some wonderful introduction, but she led the Oceans20 team in Brazil last year, and we're basically learning from her wonderful lessons going forwards today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, distinguished colleagues. First of all, let me thank the organizers for this invitation, and my special thanks to His Excellency Professor Blades Zimande for the nice remarks about what we have done in Brazil over the past year. It's a difficult task to talk about anything pertaining to the oceans after Yanga's speech. I want to be her mother, so I hope she allows me. It's very inspirational, you know that, and we need your energy. So being your sisters and brothers, mothers and fathers from the other side of the Atlantic, it was a real pleasure for us to handle the Oceans20 to become the Ocean20 in South Africa. So my special thanks goes to colleagues that have helped us in this endeavor, and I see Eric Gursky from the UN Global Compact here. Eric has been a great champion in our work last year, and also Alexander Tura, my colleague from the UNESCO Chair for the Oceans, also the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and the World Economic Forum. They were also very important for us to bring science into the G20 perspective. So without any further ado, let me go on my presentation. I hope it won't last too long, but I'll be free for further explanations as the day goes by. I'll be here for the whole day. So for those of you that I have not met yet, I'm Janice Trotter-Duha, and I'm presently the Director for Infrastructure and Operations. And if you allow me, I just want to make a small propaganda on what collaboration between South Africa and Brazil has been before the Ocean20 came to place. So we have a long history of cooperation on marine research between South Africa and Brazil, and our main conduit has always been capacity development and knowledge sharing over the Atlantic basin. We've deployed many oceanographic cruises, sensors, instruments in the South Atlantic. Same letters of your country, SA. And we've been very grateful for the cooperation that we have in the past with so many distinguished scientists from South Africa, starting with John Field, Jeff Brandrett, Chris Reason. Chris was around, I've seen here in Cape Town, and Stuart Bernard, Juliet Herms, she's my special sister, and some that have already left us in these challenges, like Lucha Harms and Mathieu Hu. So 1 minute to tell you what we are at in Brazil these days. We have this new institute. That's the National Institute for Ocean Research. We call it INPO. And it's a non-profit, independent institution qualified as a federally funded research institute. And it belongs, well, it was generated via the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. We are very young. We started our operations 8 months ago with a huge challenge, which is to provide a science program based on large-scale ocean circulation studies, marine biodiversity and its applications, deep ocean research, and technology and innovation. I won't go much further with my personal propaganda, but this is what our duties are all about, is to coordinate a research, innovation, and infrastructure network made of more than 80 universities, institutes, and the private sector. Having said that, what we know is international cooperation is absolutely necessary, as Ashley has just mentioned before. We cannot do it alone. And if you look at this map, it's an interesting map that projects the oceans and gives us a clear hint that we have just one ocean, interconnected. But at school, we learn we have 5. So we have a job there to explain kids what that is all about. And we'll do it. Let me go back in the past a little bit when I talk about one high-level dialogue instrument that we have set up back in 2003 between India, Brazil, and South Africa. That was the ICSHMO, and we've managed to have an alliance, as we called it, dealing with South-to-South commercial and scientific cooperation. And I repeat, commercial and scientific cooperation. And with that, we've managed to build trust among ourselves. We supported mobility and integrated some scientific communities. It was a great opportunity to empower through skill developments. And why I say that is that we have some precedent to what we are doing now under the G20, and more specifically the Oceans20. So this was the first meeting of this alliance. Guess where? Cape Town. So there we are, much younger than now, I agree, but with the same energy. So I think that was some sort of a past template that we have to pay some attention to. We are not starting from scratch. We have been able to make a plan, a strategic framework for the years after we have met in Cape Town. Don't ask me what happened to ICSHMO. I don't have the answer, but I just wanted to leave that as a question mark and something that would certainly contribute to what South Africa, Brazil, and India could do under the Oceans20. Those 3 countries are really interested in the oceans. So, moving ahead, whoops. We all have knowledge about an All-Atlantic Research Alliance, AORIA, and we will have time to explore that further during this meeting, if I understand correctly. But it is very inspirational, and one of the main axes of action under AORIA is exactly intergenerational dialogues. We need new people on board. We need energy from the young guys. We need younger. Younger is young, you see? So she's the one already fit for the job. And then getting to the G20 perspective now, those are the G20 member states that sit on this group that has been founded after the Asian financial crisis, as some of you may remember, and as a forum for the finance ministers and central bank governors to discuss global economic and financial issues. This year that Brazil has had the presidency of the G20, we had some invited countries joining us in that small square over there. But as you can see, we are here. In fact, 21 and not 20 nations anymore. And with a prospect for getting even bigger, we represent 85% of the global GDP. That's absolutely astounding. And 75% of the global trade. So those numbers are really striking, and we should not forget about them. I'm having trouble with my, can't go back and move on. So this is more or less what our work has been done last year. We had our inception meeting, as we call it, on the 18th of March. And by July, we had a mid-year conference. And we've finished our job on the 13th of November when we passed on the baton to South Africa. In fact, we did not pass the baton to South Africa. We decided that we would ignite a torch and carry it together. And this is what we wish to be doing for the next years to come. This year with South Africa, the year after with the US, and knows who after the US, but it's a paved road. There's no return. We've decided to get one specific architecture for our Ocean20 in Brazil, and the ideas that were brought to the table derived from ocean dialogues. We have organized many of them. We had over 6,000 participants, 34 countries joining us in our dialogues, 300 international speakers, 100 plus recommendations for the oceans communique that I would dwell upon shortly. Those were the priorities that we have decided to dwell upon. And from those 5 priorities, we have 10 points in our action plan that we have handled to South Africa. So you can see that there is so much matching with what South Africa is thinking about bringing action plans to place. That's the way to go. We've done the diagnosis, and now we have to start into what I call the cooperation, action in place. And we'll do that. A quick timeline for you. This presentation can be available to anybody, okay? So just to make sure that. So it's a long process. I would say it's not too long, but it's very, very energetic. So you do have to concentrate your energy in going through all those different steps, and you must not constrain yourself just for the Ocean20. You have to interact with the other engagement groups. And we had 13 in Brazil. So every meeting of a different engagement group, we were there addressing the ocean message for them. And that has been very important. This is the end of the game. It gave us a feeling of emptiness to some extent, because we would no longer, we hold weekly meetings for that whole year. So from that point onwards, woof, it was vacuum, no meetings, and we really regretted not having ourselves on a screen once a week. But there you go. That was the 30th of November meeting in Brazil, in Rio, and we were navigating the oceans towards the G20. That was the end of the game. That's when we got our nautical chart to start the navigation. And as you can see, our very last session, our very last panel, had our South African colleagues sitting there with us. And Juliet playing an important role with our guardian of the planet, Dr. Carlos Nobre, that has joined us in this meeting. So there, pass the baton, off we go. It was a busy agenda, worth it. We got so many important remarks from all those people that have joined us in the meeting. So this is it. That was the end of the game. That was the completion of our job. And we believe this Oceans20 communique really represents a pioneering effort for those to follow on, but not forgetting the inspiration that we have received from Indonesia and India under the G20 presidencies. I do not have time to describe each and every priority themes that we have drafted, but if you have any need of any special clarification for them. I have them by the end of my presentation, so we can get that. But you have the QR code as well, so I'll leave the screen on for a moment. I hope it works. It took me a lot of work, and I wish to personally thank Melissa Philander for helping me out with that. A big thanks, Melissa. So please get hold of it, and let's keep the discussion going. Okay? But most importantly, it's not just the official document that matters. We were very lucky to have an online meeting with our colleagues from South Africa on the 21st of January this year, when we have discussed lessons learned. What really helped and what didn't help in the exercise. So it's all in one document that we have shared with our South African colleagues, and those are the main points that we have identified. So, as said, you have to continue pushing for the creation of this conceptual basis, what the ocean is all about to the G20 for the global economy, and get those relationships with the government as well. We, as you saw, are an independent institute, but we never worked alone. We always interact with our governments within the remit of our own independence. And it's important, as said, that you interact with working groups and engagement groups to the extent possible, because we still have a long way to go to address the ocean message. I don't know what sort of arrangement you will have for discussing ideas and recommendations, but I would certainly recommend that for every meeting you attend, you have a one-pager with recommendations arising from the Ocean20. And then a midterm is a good idea to sort of get the pulse of how far or not too far we're going in this endeavor, and have a document, a communiqué by the end of it, handled to the authorities that would be at the G20 summit. And also, that's a very important message. As we deal with a financial group and not a scientific group, we have to get out of our scientific bubble. We have to look around and see what is the world in need from my part as an ocean scientist. And we have come through some important points. They're not just those, do not restrict yourself to those 3 lines, but those were clearly identified. We have to improve our detection and prevention of illegal activities at sea. This is on a growing stage, and that does not help our economies. Also, the protection of critical underwater infrastructures. Most people here in this room certainly heard what's going on at the Baltic Sea, and that's rather serious. And of course, the opportunities to enlarge, expand our international collaboration based on societal needs. Let's never forget that. Let's never forget traditional communities. Let's never forget what Yanga's words were earlier on. So we have some ideas that I think we have shared already with South Africa in the past, and those pertain to marine monitoring systems, now with the idea of trying to be more democratic in this sampling of the oceans by producing what we call low-cost instruments. Some people don't like that expression much because it seems to be of bad quality. No, it's not the case. We just want to lower the costs so that most institutions would have access for the technology. And we all know predatory fishing, how bad it would be for the preservation of marine life and the sustainability of ecosystems. I've already mentioned the security of critical subsea infrastructures. This is something else that we have to tackle. But growing awareness on the importance of the oceans, ushering a new era of international cooperation is what we're looking for this special year. And we had the pleasure, as G20 delegations went to Brazil, to host Ambassador Olivier Davor. Mr. Olivier Davor is the president of France's special envoy for the UN Ocean Conference coming next June in Nice. So he visited our institute. We're very pleased to host him there. And we discussed a few takeaway messages that we think would be important. And I wish to call your attention to the fact that in this same year, we have the UN Ocean Conference. That's the third ocean conference, at the same time that we have the COP30, and it's the 30th conference. So we have a gap that we have to fill in from the 3 to the 30, but we'll get there. And see, we have some takeaway messages from Rio, via South Africa, Nice, to Belém. And we have to make sure that we have this well in our minds, that we have an opportunity to showcase future possibilities for the Atlantic Ocean with regard to coastal resilience, ocean observations, marine research infrastructure, and the coordination of action plans. I mentioned the Atlantic, but I know your job is much bigger than ours. You have 3 oceans to take care of. We just had 1. And I also wish to call attention, I presume Eric could be able to provide us some extra information on the Blue Economy and Finance Forum to take place in Monaco at the same time that we have the UN conference. So this is something else that we should pay close attention to. We have a clear view under the Ocean20 in Brazil that it's the human well-being what matters. And in that regard, we have also been very fortunate to work with the municipalities in Brazil. Like we have an agreement with the town hall in Rio de Janeiro. So all the information that has been produced at the international governmental level, we are translating to the local level, to the direct benefit of society. Ocean literacy is something else that we have to be aware that we need to embark upon. We have to teach our kids beyond formal education as well. And I use that example of my previous slide of one ocean concept that we need to expand to them. So, in a nutshell, as Brazilians, we wish to continue our existing cooperation and switching to cooperations with South Africa across the South and Tropical Atlantic, having our institute fully dedicated to that. I understand from a very robust, precise, and pragmatic document that I received from South Africa that what you're trying to do is much alike what we would expect to be done after the document that we have produced. And we are so glad that we will be in a position by the end of this year, and I'm sure about that, to advance the Global South in the imperatives towards 2030 and beyond. And we are committed to carrying the torch with you. As I was flying from Rio to Cape Town, I came across In-Flight magazine, and there you go, very first page. This is what I read from Mr. Zane Dangor with respect to the G20. So the message has been flying, literally flying across the world. And I'm glad you guys are so much engaged on that. I think that's, that's more or less what I wish to bring to you, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janice. So we've got some large shoes to fill, and the way in which we do that now is to discuss with you what our thinking is going forwards as ocean actions under the Ocean20 South Africa banner. So it's amazing to welcome everybody. You've probably seen my name many, many times on your emails. My name's Tammy. I am the Ocean and Polar Coordinator with the Seon Igagasini node, and we've been asked to lead on the Ocean20 initiative for South Africa for this year. But there's absolutely no way we can be doing this alone, and so that's why we've tried to bring as many stakeholders together as possible to see how we can take this journey forwards for the oceans and for South Africa, and indeed for Africa. So let's see if we can get through this presentation. If it's going to work. Sorry. There we go. So I would have sent to you all the framework document that we put together in collaboration with a number of stakeholders already, and I hope you've had an opportunity to have a look through this. If not, I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of what we're trying to do, and we're very much open for discussions going forwards to see how we can engage with many of you, all of you, in terms of our Ocean Action Initiative. So our theme under the G20 themes, as you've heard today, is that of uniting for inclusive and sustainable ocean development. And we want to try and advance the cooperative innovation and partnerships that we can put together through this initiative at the moment. Oh. So in the way in which we thought to do this was to actually build on the partnerships, which was one of the themes that came from the Brazilians' Oceans20 initiative. And we looked at this as a quadruple helix almost. So to try and look at academia and universities, industry and business, government and the public sector, finance institutions, civil society, and how these could be interwoven with each other across different themes, across different ideals, to get through to ocean action. So it's what we're trying to do is take that came out of those dialogues, all of those amazing themes, and progress them into actionable solutions. So this would be the ocean actions themselves would be targeted, solution-orientated interventions, and we welcome anyone, everyone who would like to do this with us to get involved. We want to tackle critical ocean challenges in practical ways. So instead of just talking the talk, we want to walk the talk, as it were. The way in which we look to do this would be to action these high-level recommendations as was put forward. We would like to foster partnerships. How can we look at building those puzzle pieces, putting those puzzle pieces together? Janice spoke about low-cost technologies or innovative technologies, and we're hosting a workshop tomorrow around this. But how do we find the finance to be able to put those concepts into place, to put those prototypes out there into the ocean, to test them? How can we get them past that research funding phase to put them out into the greater communities in order to do citizen science? How can we involve schools and the public to do that citizen science in that case as well? So there's various groupings that we can pull together to make a concept such as low-cost technologies for sustainable ocean and coastal resilience and take that further. And that's only one example. We want to be able to equip less developed or lesser developed countries, regions around us with these same tools, not only innovative technologies, but others. And with the G20 being in South Africa, and the African Union being part of the G20 now since 2023, we want to work with our partner countries, our neighboring countries, and extend the lessons we're learning from this initiative forwards to them as well. So a number of, if you've gone through the framework documents, a number of the events we're hoping to attend are actually out in WIOMSA conference in Kenya, and to engage with other people around the African continent so we can extend this thinking process outwards. And we also want to align with local, regional, and international efforts that are being put forward. So there's many of them listed. There's probably many more that aren't listed. But for instance, the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Ocean Decade for the Sustainability of the Ocean, and others, the BBNJ was mentioned earlier. How can we actually, what we're deciding on, what we're doing, how can we contribute to those initiatives going forwards? And then advance the Global South. So this has been spoken about quite a bit from the minister's speech all the way through to Janice's talk earlier. There's a great South-South collaboration, and we need to build that for the Southern Hemisphere. We cannot always look to the Northern Hemisphere for our solutions. We need to make the solutions ourselves and spread those out. So the guiding principles of ocean actions is inclusivity, practicality, sustainability, collaboration, but most importantly, creating legacies. So we want to enhance and think about solutions that can go forwards, that are pulling together groups, but we want to go beyond the 1st of December when we hand the baton over to the next country, in this case, the US. What ocean actions could we be putting into place that could last beyond this year, towards 2030 and further? How do we make sure that we keep going? We don't want to stop. We want the momentum to keep going. We want it to be almost like a tidal wave of innovations, of solutions to complex problems. And how can we get that going for the next generation and the generation after that? We want solutions that outlive us. We want to be able to make sure our ocean is good for the next generation and onwards, beyond this room right now. So creating legacies is very important to what we're trying to do. The screen keeps going off. So we've listed a number of potential ocean actions, and they are not by any means a solid list. We just mentioned those that we thought would be of interest to those that will be in the room, but we're open to ideas. But things like blue finance, being able to fund these ideas, being able to take it forwards. We have a number of discussions going on around carbon bonds, blue carbon bonds, etc. Adaptive and informed ocean governance, making this work. And we've got a number of teams, stakeholders already engaging with us that are looking to take that ocean governance conversation forwards. Capacity enhancement, and I'm going to show you one of the actions we've already started undertaking in terms of capacity development, but how do we go further? How do we get to the high school kids, to the primary school kids? How do we get inland and make sure that everybody understands the ocean, everybody understands the value of the ocean and how it influences their lives on a daily basis? Food security and blue foods, which we've spoken about already, and is critical in terms of our society around us. We know the Indian Ocean has got a number of countries that surround it, and many of those are reliant on the Indian Ocean for their very food source. That is, most of the time, is their only source of protein. But we also know that the Indian Ocean is the fastest warming tropical ocean basin, which is having a direct impact on food security in those regions. What do we do? How do we take that forwards? How do we make sure that we can support global population? What solutions have we got now that we can take forwards? Understanding, conserving and restoring marine ecosystems is incredibly important. We've heard a number of stories, we've seen a number of stories in the news, and we need to tackle these problems as a team. Understanding the dynamics resulting in the impacts of translocation of species, be that with climate change, be that with changes in the ecosystems and range extensions. And finally, renewable energies and the just energy transition. We heard a little bit about offshore wind farms. We've seen beautiful wind farms come up all over the Eastern Cape. How could we be harnessing our ocean space in terms of renewable energies? Can we do it in Southern Africa? It's a big question. Can we do it around Africa? Is it a possibility? And if so, how do we move that forwards? Who are the engineers that we need to put in touch with the correct oceanographers, to put in touch with the correct benthic ecologists to understand whether putting a pylon that would be able to withstand an offshore wind farm would be able to work? How do we draw these dots and build these puzzle pieces? Where can we assist you? Of course, it's not going to be easy. We cannot make all the solutions. We can't fix all the world's problems in one day. If we could, we would all be quite happy. But the idea of Ocean Actions is we want to support your ideas and put these forward so that we're making sure that politicians and policymakers are understanding what is needed in terms of the ocean space to build our economies and to secure our livelihoods going forwards. So there's a number of things we're already undertaking that we'd like to share with you now. The first of these is Econ SA, which is a early career ocean network professional network of networks, as it were. The DSTI is happy to support this initiative going forwards, and the idea is to bring together the various different ECOP groups around Southern Africa and others into Africa and pull them together under an umbrella so that they have support. They're able to apply for funding for travel. They're able to engage with one another in order to understand where the gaps are in terms of knowledge. How can we be sharing resources? How could they be sharing ideas going forwards? You know, opportunities at various universities or jobs coming up. How can we share that information across? So we're wanting to create this secretariat, this network of networks for early career ocean professionals, and we're hoping to have that launched within the next few weeks. The second of these, and we're having this workshop tomorrow, is the AORIA, the All Atlantic Ocean Research Innovation Alliance. Innovative technologies, low-cost sensors. There's lots of names we want to do for this. And we had an incredible session yesterday of emerging technologies in ocean observing as part of the ICSHMO conference. And what we want to do is put these people in a room and go, how do we do this for coastal resilience? We have the skills in this country, we have the skills in Africa to build these systems, to build these sensors that are needed, that are unique for our problems. How do we put that together in order to protect our coastal areas and take that forward? So we're doing that workshop tomorrow, and I think many of you have already registered for that particular one. We also have an engagement group towards IPOS, and Tanya's in the room with us. And this is the international platform for ocean sustainability, and that's taking this idea of how do we take this forwards, and there's discussions going on this afternoon, and we're looking to try and support this going forwards as well as in terms of Ocean20, sorry. And finally, with Eric, Sturla Hendrickson is a special advisor of the UN Global Compact for the Ocean, and he attended the Singapore Maritime Week at the end of February and attended 2 sessions of maritime just transition, and maritime security. And these were both attended by Her Excellency Charlotte Lobe, who is a High Commissioner of South Africa in Singapore. And the idea here is and carried on next week through the London meetings in terms of green energies, is well, how do we look at that in terms of making sure that shipping becomes greener, burning thousands of kilograms of diesel every day into the atmosphere. How do we make that greener? But also, how do we make sure the next cohort of naval officers, engineering and navigation officers are able to man those ships going forward? So it's a big conversation. We have in the room with us Odwa, who's from the South African Institute of Maritime Saimi, this is a conversation that's quite large, but can we join this dots of what we're doing in South Africa in terms of training? Can we be a part of this discussion of green energy in terms of shipping, and how do we take this forwards? And there's a number of other things that we're starting to go on. So we'd like to engage with various groups and build these ocean actions. And the way in which we've done this is we've created a call for actions, which I would have sent out to you as well. And it's what we're looking to do, and we now have a person who's joined us as of yesterday, Melissa, who will help us with this communications out to stakeholders. And we're hoping that people will be able to contact us and say, look, I would love to work on plastics. I am a scientist who can do this, or I have a financial capability of supporting a project. Where can I get involved? I'm an engineer who knows how to build this particular instrument, and I'm very keen to get involved with wind generation. And we want to try and pull these people together, the various different stakeholders, through this call to actions and say, right, let's have a discussion a bit further. Let's take that idea that Janice found, or that recommendation that Janice had from last year's engagement groups, and let's take it forward and build this ocean action. And then what we're hoping to do is, out of each and every one of these interactions, like we have here, is to take those recommendations up to the working groups. So there's 2 working groups. The first of these is research and innovation, and we have some collaborators that are involved with that working group here in the room, as well as the environment and climate sustainability group, which Ashley mentioned earlier. So we want to be able to interact with those working groups and the Sherpas and put the ocean on their agenda. So we're not coming with only the problems, we know the problems, but here's a solution. And here's the people that might be able to put that together. Here's an idea going forwards. Can you help us with this part of the puzzle? And we want to be a part of that solution and drive that forwards. So we're looking for your information and your ideas, and to help us build these puzzle pieces together. So expected outcomes, strengthen partnerships. We're all in this room. There's not that many of us that are traditional academics in this room, and that's incredible. We have a very diverse group of stakeholders, and we're looking to build these actions together. Sorry, the screen keeps disappearing. Increased capacity. We want to look at how we can build up the next generation of marine scientists, engineers, mathematicians, financial directors, people who are understanding of the ocean space to take that idea forward. Practical frameworks. We all have really great ideas, and we'd love to just be able to wave a wand and fix the ocean and save the world, but we can't, unfortunately. We need practical solutions in order to take that forward and be able to do what we need to do. And then this amplified regional and global cooperation. And we're doing this. We've got a lot of people online with us who are muted and can't introduce themselves, unfortunately. But we're hoping to engage as much of the international community. And the way in which we're looking to do this is through these forums. But we're looking to be at the UNOC, the UN Ocean Congress, as we discussed earlier. We want to try and put this forward to the COP30 in Belém, and there's various other groupings that we're hoping to be able to put these solutions out into the world, and how we do that. So I'm going to stop there for now, and I would like to invite onto the stage Janus Landskov, if I pronounced that correctly. And this is another solution that is coming forward, another idea that we'd like to give them the opportunity to be able to present a little bit further for us. Thank you, Janus.
Yeah, thank you very much. Such an honor to be here. How do I start my presentation? Here we go. Okay. Today I'm here in, I think, my most humble form to just maybe bring the idea really is to bring some nature and some ocean into this place. And just as a disclaimer, I'm a marine biologist working for the Sea Change project. I'm working on a project that is called 1001 Seaforest Species, which is funded largely by the Save Our Seas Foundation, and I have a research affiliation with Stellenbosch University. And as a biologist, as a researcher, but also mostly as a human, I've been diving and spending a lot of time in these beautiful kelp forests around Cape Town. And I want to introduce you to one of a friend that I made. This is one of the most incredible, one of my favorite clipfish. I call it the species, the sea forest clipfish. And this particular animal was this large male, and I was following it for several months, and it took me into its space. It showed me all of his favorite hiding spots. And I learned a lot of amazing messages and a lot of, I learned a lot from this animal, and this animal changed my perspectives on how I actually see these kelp forests. And this is me when I was 2 years old. And in retrospect, and actually only quite recently, I realized that that was probably the time when I got put on these scientific glasses. And what do I mean by that? I actually mean my dad was a high school biology, chemistry teacher. I grew up in Germany. I had this Western worldview, but there's actually a lot of other things. And this education kind of led me to Cape Town. I've been here now for the last 12 years. I studied for a master's at UCT, and then later for the PhD, where I had this incredible privilege for 3 years of my life to dive really, really, really deep into the biodiversity of one particular group, which were these hermit crabs. So I did my PhD on hermit crabs, and the real idea of this PhD was to understand how many of these species are actually living in South Africa. So we started, there were about 30 species that we knew. 3 years later, we had 75, and there's probably more than 100 that actually still need to, many of them that still need to be discovered. And I learned two messages, or two main lessons from this PhD. The one was how unique, how remarkable our South African waters actually are, how biodiverse. And then secondly, how much work there is actually still to be done, how much is still to be discovered, still to be researched. And at the same time, I was starting to dive and spend a lot of time with Craig Foster, and I joined the Sea Change team. At the time, we were just a few friends going out diving. And then a few years later, we had this massive global success with my octopus teacher, which changed a lot of the things. And within me, I realized that there are actually other bodies of knowledge, including nature knowledge, wisdom from the ancestors on our wild coast, probably. And I had a lot of those experiences myself by diving in these kelp forests. And all of that together, because of all of that together, how do I go back? We started putting all of these things together, thinking, what could we actually do? And this is the project that I've been working on for the last few years, which is called 1001 Sea Forest Species. We want to go out, document those animals from the kelp forests. We want to do the science, but we also want to build a deeper understanding through connection. And when you dive in these kelp forests, this is the most important species. This is Eclonia maxima, the big giant bamboo kelp that builds these sort of forests. There's a second species, which is the split fan kelp. And together they are building this remarkable three-dimensional space. When you go diving here in Folds Bay, this is what a reef looks like. There's not a centimeter of space that is not overgrown by marine invertebrates. And I want to give you a little bit of an idea where that sea forest clipfish actually fits in, and how many species of these clipfish actually live in our waters. And this is really only to give you a glimpse of one group of these clipfishes, because they are incredibly diverse. So there's a sea forest clipfish, there's a super clipfish, there's a mosaic clipfish, there's a shy clipfish, there's a blunt-nosed clipfish, there's a speckled clipfish, there's a kelp clipfish, there's a leafy clipfish, there is a platinum clipfish, there is a stripy clipfish, there is a sad clipfish, there is, what happened on the bottom, there's a elongated sand clipfish, agile clipfish, barbelled clipfish that is night active, there's a Chinese clipfish, a snaky clipfish, a peacock clipfish, a bull clipfish that looks like a dragon, and then lastly on the slide, a kelp stipe clipfish, what I call a kelp stipe clipfish. And what do all of these clipfish have in common? Well, they're incredibly diverse. They're part of this group. They only really occur in southern Africa. This is their home. And this home is mostly driven by these incredible upwelling systems. There's an abundance of life in our oceans. This is actually a cloud of mysids on the right. And they are small crustaceans. They are part of this kind of big web of life that's feeding everything. And it doesn't maybe look like much, but and I actually didn't ever really look at them very closely until that one day when I put one under the microscope. And I realized how delicate, how remarkable, how beautiful, and how well adapted these animals are to the system. And I never dived through a group of kelp of mysids in the same way. Okay, this is not working. Stuck here. There we go. So, where must I point this? Screen? Just go to the next slide somehow. Okay, I'm basically done. So this animal is the one that really took me into that world, and I learned a lot from this. And I keep asking myself, through this animal taking me into his world, the more I got closer, the more I realized how remarkable that place is. The more my perspective actually changed of how much other knowledge systems, how much more there is actually out there. And I wonder, and I have this question to all of you, what could the world look like if even for one slight moment we could see the world through the eye of a kelp clipfish? So we would like to show you a little video that we made last year for our through Sea Change project, and a video that we showed last year at the G20 as well in support of the IPOS, towards IPOS. And maybe you have seen this video before. It's called Mother Nature in the Boardroom. Maybe you have not. If you have seen it, I invite you to maybe watch it again, maybe through the eye of the kelp clip, of the sea forest clipfish. And then after that, our chairperson, Chris van Mellekamp, will also give a small little message to you. So enjoy the video.
A very unusual non-human person taught me about biodiversity. She was a fraction of my size, and 2/3 of her intelligence was in her arms. Through her, I got to know over 50 species she hunts. She introduced me to her cleanup crew. They eat the remains of her kills and her waste. I got to know all her predators. She showed me the web of life, the threads through the great African sea forest, through all our blue ocean heart. At first I felt apart from all this, but after diving every day for 10 years, I came to know that web. I came to realize we are all threads. I came to know that everything is tied to everything else. Pull on one creature and everything feels it. Pull on another and everything feels it. We all feel it. The more we try to control nature, the more those threads are stretched to fraying point, especially at climate level. If Mother Nature was in the world's boardroom, what would she say?
Do I have a seat at this table? I am, after all, the biggest shareholder. I ask all of you directors to see clean rivers as the veins in your bodies, oceans as the air that you breathe, and our beautiful landscapes as tapestries of hope. How do you propose to have a sustainable economic plan without a real biodiversity plan, neglecting to invest in me as the provider of your natural capital is dangerous. You cannot keep drawing down on me without getting into debt. A debt that threatens all life.
And out of a corner, 8 curious arms of wisdom might extend themselves to explore our faces. My sea forest teacher would remind us that we are all one family, all kin. We need to support each other. Biological diversity is the most precious thing we will ever know. She is the primary animator of every single one of our lives.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was a very special opportunity for us to show it in Brazil for the first time last year at the Oceans conference. And also in that vein, I'd like to just recognize the work that our Brazilian colleagues did. Janice shepherding through a very complex political and social project, and handing the baton over to South Africa, which we've, as you can see, have taken up with vigor and purpose. So what we've tried to do in this presentation is also to show you that many of the projects that we can adopt globally can be very practical, can be measurable, can be implementable, and are based in reality, the reality that you've just seen, descriptions of the kelp forests that Giannis so beautifully put together today. Our focus is on the oceans, integrated living ecosystems, and what we're proposing, and what was proposed in Brazil, was that the kelp forests of the world should receive greater attention. Kelp forests, I'll just outline briefly, are a prime example of an element within these broader ecosystems that fits beautifully into every single aspect of the SDG 14. The underwater world, the near shore, integrated into the economies, peoples, cultures, and the broader biosphere of the world. The proposals that were put in place in Brazil was really around trying to set up a framework for a broader conversation globally around the importance of the world's kelp forests. The Great African Sea Forest, which is a unique and powerful ecosystem made of giant bamboo kelp stretching from the Namibian border for more than 1,000 kilometers all the way through to the southern part of the Cape, is really an example. We refer to it as a metaphor for biodiversity. It has an incredible biodiversity supporting ocean and planetary health. These forests are carbon sinks and nutrient cycles They absorb huge amounts of nitrogen from the ocean. They produce more oxygen per hectare than do rainforests on the land. They play a crucial role in protecting shorelines from ocean surges and storms, and they act, as we saw from the work of Janus, they act as a huge nursery for thousands and thousands of species all around the world that are valuable to marine ecosystems, but also critically to the fishing industry. They represent powerful cultural heritage evidence in South Africa going back more than 100,000 years to the early origins of man in southern Africa, and then across the world later on, linking ocean shore-living cultures to these kelp forests that today cover some 30% of all the shorelines of the world. The latest estimates are that these kelp forests cover some 7 million square kilometers across the world. And these are under threat. They are under threat because of climate change, overfishing, habitat destruction through development, deep-sea trawling, ocean acidification, extraction, pollution, and what I call a knowledge deficit. Here we are privileged to witness what they are like. Here we're privileged to benefit from the work that the scientists and a lot of the researchers are doing within these kelp forests. But most people in the world don't even know that they exist. And this is an Achilles heel for these ecosystems, because when you can see how they're being degraded, it's easy to start taking action. But we're currently in a situation where the degradation of the international kelp forest is happening unseen. And they play a critical role in ocean health. So what came out of Brazil and the Brazilian meetings was that was a recommendation to protect, sustain, and account for critical marine ecosystems with a focus on kelp forests. And some critical strategic actions were suggested. And that was that G20 leaders drive global and national policy initiatives recognizing kelp forests as critical ecosystems. That the inclusion of kelp and coral as blue carbon resources under the NDCs will contribute to mitigating efforts and protection, and ensure effective implementation of international agreements, which would include, as we've heard earlier, the Convention for Biodiversity, UNCLOS, the BBNJ, Ramsar, and the Paris Agreement. Further suggestions were to the private sector, as we saw from the video, to bring Mother Nature into the boardroom, allow the decision makers, the leaders of the world, to, when they get together, to draw in this major stakeholder that's right on our doorstep, that surrounds everything that we do. Bring your biggest stakeholder into your decision-making process, where your economic decisions are balanced against the needs of nature, where your business decisions are balanced against focusing on the importance of biodiversity. And then to adhere to national and international frameworks, where possible, mandating kelp forest conservation. Also to scientific institutions, to deepen the research, deepen the knowledge about these incredible ecosystems, and deepen the science-based insights that you can share with policymakers. And then to NGOs, engage local communities in efforts through storytelling and media, which is what we do. Advocate for including kelp protection in biodiversity policies, leveraging international agreements, and then to local communities and indigenous peoples to work with policymakers, scientists, in order to share your traditional knowledge, share traditional knowledge and for sustainable kelp forest management. So just to sum up, we have an opportunity here to talk to many of the issues that were raised this morning. And that is, here is an opportunity for one project which is measurable, implementable, and doable, which will integrate a multidisciplinary approach, a multilateral collaboration, and leading to measurable and actionable outputs. This was also a call from our president, that South Africans should look for projects that are measurable, projects that are doable and actionable. This is crucial if we want to drive a sense of progress within the broader landscape of climate change and ensure that these natural assets that belong to all are protected and restored. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So at this stage, we will have a very short panel discussion just to get some ideas flowing. I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Gilbert Seeker, who will be leading this panel discussion, along with, let me just see if I can get this to work. Here we go. Okay, along with Eric Gorecki from the UN Global Compact, Dr. Janice Trot-Dua from IMPO, Mr. Imran Patel from the DSTI, as well as Mr. Andre Scher, who is representing the International Ocean Innovation South Africa. And of course, our lovely Younger, who will be coming forward to present the youth, and Ms. Noki and Lovo to represent business. Thank you. So Gilbert, I don't know if you want to stand as well.
Yes, good day, everyone. As we've heard today from the previous speakers, the importance of oceans actions and in terms of ensuring that we spear forward what was discussed in Brazil and put it into action. Yes, I think you've also heard that oceans actions, most importantly, are crucial because of the health of the oceans directly affects the well-being of our planet and all living creatures. This includes humans, and because of several reasons that have been presented. I'm not going to go through them. And the panel here has been invited to shed some ideas, particularly in terms of how to action what we have identified as possible actions particularly to ensure that we action broadly the Ocean20 priorities that have been identified from the discussions that were initiated in Brazil, from the dialogues that were in Brazil. So I will ask them several questions, and then I'll later on engage you as well, invite you to also put some questions to them as well. To the panel, I think I'll give probably me three of you to address the first question. The first question basically is that The Ocean Actions Initiative aims to create actionable solutions to complex ocean challenges, such as pollution, ocean governance, monitoring of the ocean itself, and development of products and services aimed at benefiting industry and society as a whole. So my question to you, colleagues, is how do you see your sector playing a role in this case? I'll start with, okay, let me start with, from my far right, Adesha, Andre, what's your take on that?
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to everyone. I thought I'll also make use of this opportunity since I'm not going to be here this afternoon due to prior arrangements, and I thought I'll just elaborate a little bit before I answer your question. And just welcome and commend the NRF and SAON in particular for that excellent draft framework. And I understand there's going to be ample opportunity for further engagement and further enhancement of that document, particularly in line with the 4 priorities as set out by the President, the respective working groups, the task teams and the Sherpas, as well as the finance tracks and the other engagement groups, which is really very important because quite a number of these engagement groups have ocean agendas, and I think we need to find that linkage. For example, the agriculture group that deals with sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and I think it's a big, huge linkage to the work of Oceans20, which then also, for example, if you link it back, talks to the President's priority on food security. So, and looking at those thematic areas of the Brazil communique, we hope that identified actions could then talk to areas around resourcing, around capacity enhancement, around the collaborative partnerships that Tammy had already elaborated on, and the inclusion and the use of knowledge. And here, Yanga, yes, correctly, not formal research agenda, but indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge, and how you bring that into the ocean equation to then underpin governance. So in this regard, to come back to the question, Chair, is that the International Ocean Institute, which I represent, has been involved in the number of ocean governance and capacity enhancement initiatives for more than a decade. So we hope to strengthen, and that is a contribution we could make to strengthen the ocean governance using particular tools, whether it's marine spatial planning or marine protected areas, etc., creating this knowledgeable leaders in ocean governance. And I think quite a number of the speakers have already alluded to that in some way or another, to facilitate policy development, because we know that policy coherence, whether it's regulatory or policy, is very important and very crucial when it comes to ocean action and ocean governance in particular, and also to contribute to the development of the national agenda. And then lastly, the facilitation of blue economy strategies, because that brings in that human dimension, the economic dimension, link that to the environment into the equation. So, we do engage also other partners, for example, AfriSeas and others that we do engage on a regular basis, and to bring in again the fact that collaborative partnerships becomes very important, and I think that was also highlighted here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre. Same question. I think I'll put it to Imran.
Thanks, Gilbert, and also thanks to the organizers for putting this forward and for India, Indonesia, and particularly Brazil in laying a foundation that allows us to have a very action-oriented discussion here. I mean, I come from the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, so the kind of sector I represent is science, technology and innovation. And what needs to be done clearly is two things. One is the scale at which we're doing ocean research has to be drastically scaled up. I don't have the statistics, I'm not too sure it's something we may want to do, but I mean, clearly the kind of research agenda has been very land-focused, land-based, and so clearly we need greater amount of effort. But take into account the acceleration at which things are happening, particularly changes that are happening that needs a response, also means an effort, a greater effort to encourage collaboration and cooperation between people who are working on the same matters. We're not starting from a clean slate. I mean, I think there's a number of initiatives underway, not all of it ocean-related. For example, global cooperation around GEOS or the All-Atlantic Research Alliance. But there's still an element of things not being as coordinated and cohesive as it should be. And so I'm glad that recently, there's been positive developments, even philanthropic organizations. We had the Around Africa cruise that has happened recently, but clearly a lot more needs to happen. And it's not going to happen just on its own. I think being in a science and technology ministry for 15, 20 years, we always spoke about the fact that there needs to be greater coordination. And so I think the problem statement is there. It actually needs just practical action. It needs people with an orientation to say that the scale of our challenge is not going to be addressed if we're not able to lump funding and capacities together. And that's why initiatives like IORA, etc., are trying to do some of that. So in a sense, it's not necessarily anything new or groundbreaking. We just need to focus on doing more and doing more in a coordinated way. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Imran. Now I'll move to Janice from the Brazilian perspective. What are your expectations in this case? What role do you think can be played in this case?
Thank you very much, Gilbert, and thank you all for being here with us. I refer to theme 9 of our Ocean communique that deals with stimulating public-private philanthropic partnerships. To echo my voice with what Imran has just said, I think it's very important, as we speak about the G20, to standardize ocean finance metrics and reporting. We're all about numbers, but we have to make that more structured so as to talk to private companies and philanthropists and try to develop some blended finance models for ocean conservation. Our institute in Brazil, the National Institute for Ocean Research, is, as said, an independent institution, but we are federally funded, but also independent to the extent that we are open for collaboration with the private sector. And we have 3 pillars in our institute that pertain to improving our capacity to identify what is needed for the oceans, and namely, I'm speaking about data infrastructure. Data is dispersed worldwide. Data is very dispersed in Brazil. We have to make an effort to bring this data together under one infrastructural model. The second one deals with instrumentation, meteorology, and I'm so glad to hear that South Africa will be investing in this endeavor of producing instruments of lower costs. I'm not using the low cost expression anymore, even though I think it's good. It's a good message across because it's bound to be a democratic demonstration of, you know, everybody can do that. And finally, ocean observations, because we won't be able to explain the ocean climate nexus if we don't have sound observations. So this is what INPO, that's the acronym, is all about these days in Brazil. And we do wish to follow on with this particular theme under the Oceans20 communique that we have produced, and to work together with you, with South Africa, with African nations in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janice. And I think I'll jump to, yes, to you, Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Extremely inspiring and very, very good, broad crowd that we're having here today. I think from a UN perspective, there are two things we should try to do, and to do it at a scale and speed that is better improved regulations and better financing mechanisms. And we can actually do this. I mean, the UN is all of us. It's up to us. We can forward suggestions, proposals, blueprints for how to take this further. And just one example on the seaweed world. The Global Seaweed Coalition was something we launched back in 2020 at the UN Global Compact. It's become 2,000 entities now. And we are actually planning to establish a UN special task force on seaweed because of the urgency of lack of regulations and lack of recognition of the fire that's happening underneath our sea. It's a forest fire in the sea, and the kelp forests are dying. And we need a special UN task force to address this because the normal regulatory processes goes too slow. So that's just one example on the regulatory side. A number of other issues are on the bedding. On finance, we are working on a One Ocean finance facility. It's a French initiative, UN-led. It will take a couple of years to design it, so it can be ambitious enough and agile enough in the margin of the UN and the World Bank system. But I think it's very important because it's already been addressed. We need to de-risk the investments that are sustainable, because we are risking a lot if we don't invest in sustainable solutions. And we have to put a tax on those solutions which are not sustainable, fossil fuels as a starter. Extremely important for us, so we think the negotiations on shipping next week, and I'm leading one of the sessions there, will be fruitful, because we will put a tax on emissions on shipping, and we will give the revenues for a just transition system, investing in the Global South infrastructure. This is very interesting for pension funds, international capital management associations and so on, because if we have a de-risking mechanism, then it's much more attractive for them to invest as a private risk capital investors. So these are just different tracks, and I think G20, South Africa, really can be a legacy moment for us in November. It's just a few months away, but there's big interest in coming together to be very concrete on these actions. So let's think broad, but ensure that we actually conclude very, very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I thank you particularly for touching on the issue of finance. Sustainable blue finance is critical for supporting ocean conservation and sustainable use of ocean resources. Then this time, I think I'll ask the ECOPs in the room. No. I need a perspective from the ECOPs at the stage. What could be the limitations to sustainable blue finance for ocean actions, in your perspective?
Right,
Thank you so much, Dr. Sika, for that question. Forgive me, because my specialty is within the energy sector, but based on the discussions that have been happening the last couple of days, I'm seeing that it is a common theme across sectors when it comes to blue financing. And I've picked up that there's perhaps 4 areas of issue. And the first is this issue of a lack of standardization when it comes to financing. There is unfortunately no universal metric for blue investments. And there's different factors on why that can be the case. The first, as Eric mentioned, is the risk perception that comes with it. Can have everything to do as well with high data gaps. But most importantly as well, the regulatory fragmentation that exists makes it difficult for standardized financial models and investments to be put into the challenges that we have in the blue economy. And I'm thinking that though the points of opportunity are ironically the opposite of that, right? Which seems so simple, of developing blue finance frameworks. And the basic point of trying to start there, if I bring in the energy side of things, is the same way that we were able to develop green finance models for the just energy transition, for example, that had very clear outcomes on where the investments would be going, whether it would be investments for mitigation or investments for adaptation, or it would be investments for risk or disasters. The same type of financial frameworks need to come out from the blue space so that they make sense in that boardroom where Mother Nature is sitting, for example. When we're talking about risk mitigation, we need to move to a point, and that can only happen with a blue finance model having to be developed, where we have guarantees, as Eric has mentioned, and insurance products or first loss provisions that are able to attract capital. But that can't happen if there's not a good blue financing model. And I'm very happy that organizations like the Indian Rim Association have got a very strong push for something like this. The blue economy is something that is at the forefront, and the development of a blue economic model is also something that is of priority. So there's lessons around, but there's no synergy, which then leads me to the next point, which is the data gap issue. While there's a data gap issue in terms of how science is communicated, or a data gap issue in terms of where actually is the problem in the ocean, where should we be more worried, there's also a data gap issue in the communication of the bottom line for what would be financing the projects that are there that are trying to solve the issues in our oceans. And then of course, all of these are unfortunately undergirded by policy advocacy. And there needs to be a very strong push for harmonized regulations, which is something that is very detailed in the communique, by the way. But there needs to be harmonized regulations, because currently I feel like there's 50 million treaties that exist, but there isn't a central understanding of how they all speak to each other. There needs to be more high sea treaties, et cetera, because when we have the policy advocacy that's good and not just a policy advocacy that just exists, it also makes it easier for investors to have their uncertainties removed and feeling much more confident about investing in a particular sector when it comes to the ocean. So the opposite becomes the solution in terms of the financial issues. It seems so simple of problems, but they do require quite complex systemic solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. As now you push me to to pursue this with business, sister, tell me again, in this case, if you've identified the limitations and also those that have been listed, how would you look, basically, using the industrial sector, business sector, how would you look to overcome these challenges?
Are we on? Thank you. Thank you. I think we started. So the moment I got the invitation from Dr. Temi and Dr. Juliet, I started gathering business and the financial sector, and they're here. So if you got an invitation from Naki, it's not what would you, we are in action already. All right, so I think we've got Absa Bank here, we've got academia here, yes. So we put, for us in business, we look at time, we look at conversion, we look at commercialization. And thank you, Dr. Janice, you are very intentional about commercialization. The second thing is that, so we also need to foster socialization of the launch of the Oceans20 to business, to SMMEs, to youth, and to the community at large. If we are not intentional, we are, again, going to be sitting amongst ourselves with my academic friends and coming with such amazing work that the people that require to benefit from this are not here. I was also hoping that we have the insurance sector here and we have the logistics sector here, right? So another influence that we as business would like to influence is proof of concept funding, so that we are able to be proof of concept or agile funding. That is obviously aligned with regulatory requirements, because if we are not able, and I think the government would also require this data in order to make decisions for policy making into finance. But what has been a challenge is that feasibility research into commercialization takes a bit long. And then we go to year 2 and year 3, and there isn't something practical. And the third point I would like to bring is, as I was just listening to all of you, I was already thinking, platform economy. Oh, okay, this app. My background is technology. How much am I going to charge? Okay, so this, because with so much information, private sector requires this data in order for them to make decisions. So, and I just want to add a point to my colleague here. There is a great, there's a great potential for a private-public partnership in commercialization, not just for papers alone. We need to look at how this would make sense. The thing is, with private sector, they have to understand impact first, but how is it going to convert and how we're going to make money out of it? And I know that it's a subject that academia is so afraid to speak of. They will call it all sort of beautiful names, but it's money. It has to make money, guys. We have to make money and become profitable so that we can add value into impact, society, and people. My answer might not be academic, sir, but it's as practical as it is for us in business. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Nick. I think okay, over to you.
Just a very brief comment, because this was also brought up earlier. The Blue Economy and Finance Forum, just before the UNOC3, is aimed really at addressing this. How can we make sustainable solutions profitable? How can we make this partnership actually survive over time? Because if we only do philanthropy, it's a short-term solution. For a long-term solution, we have to have strong regulations and good standards, investment standards. And then the money will follow if there are profits there. And I think business is interested to have, a good and a positive footprint, but it has to be profitable. If not, you can't really move that sector at all, of course. But and just to mention that, at the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, there is in development with the European Investment Bank and the World Bank and a few others, initiated by us at the UN Global Compact, something called the Ocean Investment Protocol, which we try to bring together all the different blue economy matrices. So we started back in 2019 with the Blue Bond Framework, so that wind developers, shipping companies could issue a blue bond. Lastly, DP World and Empire Logistics did one to green their operations, and it was a successful bond in the market. So this is emerging, but everybody's still learning, and we have to develop these instruments so we create trust in the market that these are good long-term investments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, what's you, Janet?
Just one very short comment to echo what my predecessors have just said. We do need to improve our transparency and accountability about the ocean. And it all starts with taxonomy. For instance, definition. What is the blue economy or the ocean sea economy? Some countries call it sea economy, others call ocean economy, and a third group call it blue economy. So this taxonomy has to be sorted out, I think, to the benefit of transparency of what we wish to see done. So I completely agree. And by the way, this is theme 10 in our report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll also throw the same thing, particularly to Andre, particularly since on his background being one of the pioneers of the Operation Pakisa Oceans economy. So what's your take on that?
It sounds like something in my previous lifetime, but no, I think we need innovative financing mechanisms. I mean, we've seen recently the geopolitical landscape is changing and changing very fast. We've seen the funding disappearing. You know, even with funding from philanthropists, you need to think how you're going to access particular funding. And I couldn't agree more with you, Janice. Blended funding is the answer. I think we've seen that along the spectrum, because now it's also about risk and how you mitigate the risks and so on. And the other area that I was thinking about was that you need, and I couldn't agree more about the common language between the investor and the ocean governance practitioner, because we need to get that right. And if we want to go more radical, I think we should get the investors to now start defunding unsustainable practices and behavior, because that will also then free up some of the funding. That's more radical approach. But thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's more relevant now that I'm now throwing it to Imran to respond as well, particularly as a funder of oceanic research. And now you've also heard the comment from Andre saying you stop funding unsustainable. So I don't think basic sciences will agree with that. But then over to you.
No, it's not a science issue. It's a governance and regulation issue. So clearly, I'm not too sure what's happening in that space, but I think it makes entire sense. And I'm attracted to the concept of funding unsustainable practices, but I'm not too sure what needs to be done here. So, but I think from a sector perspective, not. I think the finance issues in general, I think a number of people mentioned it, is evolving and evolving fast. And I think we can learn from the green finance community. And just, I mean, we don't have to go through the same challenges that people have, and learn and practice. So again, I wouldn't want to divide green finance from blue finance. There's a kind of, it's the same funding that's going to be chasing sustainability. So it's sustainable finance that we need to be looking at.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Just a brief comment on that, and I think it's a very important logic that we don't want to fund unsustainable practices, and we have a good tradition for that. Child labor, red tape, polluting drinking water, red tape, can't do it. All the pensions funds are allergic to anywhere in the supply chain that there is some child labor, and we have to put ocean health as part of that.
Yeah.
So that's extremely important, and I think there is. So what we have done when we worked on the Blue Bond framework, We started back in 2019 because green bonds, very useful. The biggest threat to ocean is climate change. But then again, what about those activities in the ocean that we need special, taxonomy, frameworks, understanding for mainstream investors? What are the risks when you invest in offshore wind, in shipping, in ports, in seafood systems? What do you have to ask your company you invest in? So that's why we made the blue bond framework. It's now part of the ICSHMO family of green bonds, sustainability-linked bonds, and then blue bonds. And green bonds are, of course, project-based. Sustainability-linked is strategic investment in companies. And we try to cover both categories with the blue bond framework. It's still young because it's a learning process for investors. And literacy is so important here. I mean, we are quite used to the lingo of the ocean, but if you go to Goldman Sachs in Manhattan, where do you start? They don't want it. It's too complex for them. So we have to make it relevant and understandable, but still that it actually bites and do the work and directs investment in the right direction. And this is really the core of the Blue Economy and Finance Forum in Monaco. How can we make sure that Main Street finance, blended finance, private equity and startup finance really is put to good work? And there's no conclusion yet, but it's a process, and we need everybody to inform each other on the process. How do we make seaweed profitable? It's super important, very hard.
Okay. Younger and then Andre.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. I just want to go back to this risk concept. And I feel like it's very important for us to also highlight, and this is something that I'm really, really trying my very best in the humanities sector and in the humanities and social sciences side of things, to show that there's a difference in understanding political risk and in understanding economic risk. And in the pursuit for investments and in the call for investments, part of investments that are sustainable in the world that we have today would be a sustainability that is able to withstand political and economic risk that would be attached to it. The thing that's going on right now, for example, within the green bonds and within the energy investments, particularly the ones that are coming from the European Union, the political risk of the decisions that are made in another country that has placed Europe in the position of potentially having to go to war has got public ideology calling for a de-investment in climate financing and a higher investment in military and defense. And that is something that affects the idea of what sustainability actually looks like, because the war should not affect the investment that goes into climate, because you are still going to be fighting on a planet that is on fire. So that is a non-negotiable, and exactly what you just said now, Eric, that where there is child labor, it becomes a non-negotiable, right? It should be the same way in which we engage with risk and how that risk is communicated to the potential investors who would be coming in, that this is something that is able to withstand humans being stupid, essentially, which is the political side of things, right? How is the project that is coming through going beyond human stupidity? And that is sustainability, in my opinion, as well, in terms of how the risk would be communicated. Thanks.
Thank you.
Say that quickly.
Thank you. Andre?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a last word from me on the financing. I think it's absolutely critical for the Oceans Group to engage from the start the financial track. Because when you get to the actual ocean actions and where you're going to decide who's going to do what with what resources and put broad timelines and broad milestones together, you will need how you're going to resource. Otherwise, it's a beautiful document with actions and there's no action. So get them on board, and that's from past experience that we've learned through the oceans economy work. Get them on board from the start so that they are part of the discussions. So when you discuss particular ocean actions, that you'll have a champion You'll have the resourcing, you'll have the timeline, and what would the expected outcome and impact be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre. Yes, Jenny.
Sorry to come back, but it just crossed my mind with one very important issue. We are heading to COP30 in Belém. We'll be discussing climate, and from my internal perspective as a Brazilian, I do not see the ocean dimension well reflected in those discussions. So it matches very well to what you're just saying. We have to start from that very beginning to get the message across in COP30. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Because remember, colleagues, you also are, I don't consider you, even though, yes, I'm expecting questions from you, but then I've got a question for you as well. I consider you as part of the panel. Yes. So, from the point of view of ordinary citizens in your respective regions, your path, your sector, how would you want to see actions developed to protect the ocean and its ecosystems from now and into the future? Any take? Yes. Get a roving mic.
Thank you very much, Gilbert. I'm sorry not to answer your question. I've got a burning one for the panel. We are heading for the Financing for Development 4 in Seville, not in the near future. I think it's in June, July. And I haven't had, I would like your views on how do you think the FDF4 should consider the Ocean20 facilitation in financing. It talks that, I mean, I've read the zero draft so much, and it talks about, it's got aspirational language, we will commit to, but there's no actual implementation on the issues that you mentioned on sustainability, on people who are on the ground, it actually encourages the G20 to come up with mechanisms, and I really would like to hear from you. I don't want to pick anyone who can, I'll be part of the people going there, but I would like to carry a message, particularly from Ocean20 perspective, because it touches on the economies, it touches on the people on the ground, it touches on sustainability in all its dimensions, and I really would like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, can you take from this over to you?
Thank you. Very timely question. And I think just to weave it into the other processes going on, we have the World Bank Spring meeting coming up in 3 weeks. That's also where the finance minister will meet for the G20. After the meeting in June, we have the Food Systems Summit meeting at the AU headquarters. Of course, and as you said, Janice, we have COP30 coming up. And it's a bit too empty these days. We need very concrete action suggestions so that ministers, governments, businesses, investors can act. I think we have this opportunity now, this little window this year, to really bring the lessons from Brazil into very concrete actions. And it's about creating a taxonomy which makes it understand what's the profit of investing in sustainable ocean solutions, what's the risk, and what's the long-term benefits of community. And we discussed it a lot last year without conceptualizing too much, but we agreed that on 3 topics, the ocean is essential for the heads of state. Heads of state have a big mandate. They have to take care of their citizens in every country in the world. And they have to cater for energy security, food security, and trade security. And the ocean is so instrumental in food security, in trade with shipping, and in energy. Both trading in energy and creating energy for the long-term prosperity and resilience of their own economies. And we have to get that message across. And what does it mean for them? How can they enable investments that actually create better use of the ocean and better support of the ocean communities that actually is trying to make this profitable? And that is the job of this room, this broad community we have online and around the world, is to make it tangible for politicians to make national decisions and investors to understand this is profitable over the long term. So we have a big job to do in a very, very short time, definitely. But I think, again, blended finance has to be addressed at that meeting.
Okay. Yes, over to you.
Thank you for that question, and I think it's, I'm not going to really give the answer, but maybe I can make some comments that maybe even starting this meeting and including some of the business and the social impact community that we've brought into this meeting is probably a step towards to prepare for your meeting. And now that you've also highlighted that you'll be attending that meeting, it's a call for action on what are the things that we can look at. And I'm like you know, I don't like, sometimes it's so frustrating for Ideal, and time goes and we always look at rands and cents, timesheets, resources. So we could tap into what Eric and Janice has said, and maybe from the South African working group towards preparing for finance and business is to socialize the Oceans20 with the other working groups of the G20 and socialize and maybe choose a partner. And I'm already going to solutioning, right, Dr. Tammy? And we look at the taxonomy and the transparency to ensure standardization. And that shouldn't take long. That could be like a three-month project across the existing G20 and B20 and W20 and work groups. We socialize, we standardize, we find a partner, a sponsor, and that is achievable. And we can say by the time one of the achievements from the finance and the business within Oceans20, we're able to standardize, socialize within the G20 country what the taxonomy is. We find an academic partner, DSI is here, and that it becomes a paper that gets socialized within business, banking, social, and it's tangible. And maybe it's something that my sister could also go with when we go. It's something that is achievable. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Yes, Tanya.
Thank you, Gilbert, and hi everyone. I'm Tanya Brody-Rudolph. I co-lead the Towards IPOS. It's a platform for ocean sustainability. And I just want to respond to Gilbert's question that you asked actually at the beginning, and respond also a little bit to what Eric's answer was, which is the first component around decision makers have a huge responsibility in the coming months and years. They have mandates to do multiple things, and the ocean crosses all of them. But one of the things we've been talking about a lot today and yesterday was what constitutes the evidence base that decisions are built on. And we've heard a lot about what needs to be part of that evidence base, including indigenous knowledge, early career professionals, transdisciplinary science. But it is, and of course the natural sciences are critically important, but what's also really important is how is that evidence base translated so that decision makers can actually pick it up and run with it. And this piece is really missing in the ocean space. There is not sufficient science policy, or I prefer to call it knowledge policy society interfaces, where all of this incredible knowledge that's being generated is actually not being put into a format that decision makers can pick it up and implement in their country with their mandate. So the IPOS project, the IPOS platform, which is running some pilot projects already, is working as a knowledge partner with Oceans20, and at the next UN Oceans Conference, we will be announcing a series of action requests from states to practically do this, to take global commitments, global knowledge, and make it local and implementable for decision makers. And we're working and hoping very strongly that South Africa will be one of those pioneering countries, asking for a request that we'll be announcing at UNOC. And we'll be working with the Oceans20 team as well in the run-up, and to carry this burning torch that Janice was talking about to Nice, and from Nice to Belém. Thank you.
Ken, at the back.
Thank you, Chair. Ken Finley from AfriSeas. Firstly, a quick comment to the panel regarding the UNEP Finance Initiative Sustainable Blue Economy Financing Principles that are a series of principles out there that look quite usefully at different blue financing options and blue financing processes. I just would like to kind of put that on the table. The question that the chair posed related to, as a person in the street, what would I recommend? And if I look, I mean, I would look at it in a very different hat from where I sit and where for some of the communities that I work in Mozambique, for example, would sit with it. But I think what comes across is that it's high time we move from dialogue to action. We are seeing people over and over again saying, we want to see the change happening now. We want to stop hearing about it. We want to see actual, tangible results. And I think this idea of moving from the incredible set of dialogue recommendations produced by Brazil under their Oceans20 presidency last year and moving forward with those into tangible actions is something we really need to take forward at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Gentleman, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. I am Tamsan Amakubela from the South African Council for Graduates. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. I'm a novice when it comes to ocean economy, but I sit here and wonder, we represent about 30,000 graduates in South Africa that are looking for career uplifting opportunities. How do we convince them to look this side of the economic activity when there is very little clarity in terms of what are the crucial activities? Perhaps, as I've said in my disclaimer, I'm a novice. What is the GDP contribution of the ocean economy in South Africa? You know, I see their government people sitting here. We're not getting any of the sort. So I would really ask to say, what are the tangibles? How do we get the 30,000 unemployed graduates to be a crucial, not just a fodder into the economic system, but to become participants, contributors, and innovators? And that is where I think when we talk about the ocean economy, we could be looking at and benefit people and have sustainable solutions that will help us. So I would like to hear from you, from the economic activities at the moment. I've seen numbers that have been projected, but projected numbers won't help us. Where are we sitting at the moment? And how do we move a number of the engineering graduates that are sitting and idling in the townships and rural areas towards becoming key contributors to the ocean economy? I thank you.
Thank you very much. Please note the question. Let me gather more. The lady on the side, introduce herself.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dr. Kolisa Nyaya, and I'm the founder and director of Ulwazi Scientific Communications and STEM Research. My question is to anyone really on the panel, in fact, everyone on the panel. I'd like for you to think about this question. If anyone has an answer, I really would love to get an answer today. How business people, businesses, just small, medium, and just enterprises at large will be part of Ocean20. Because we always, as I think that's Tamsan, as he just said, we talk about these things, but we are not included. We'd really love to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a hand outside.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the incredible conversation. I'm not in the sciences, but I do want to place something on the table, if it's okay with everyone. I love hearing all of the discussions, but my question always says, and I think it's been raised by everyone, including Nyanga, when she said equity in the space. And I think Kutam Sangha is asking, where do the graduates go? So for me, it says, we're having all of these discussions, which always reminds me of the $1 a day discussion where we're saying SDGs and we're protecting the climate for the least vulnerable. But at the end of the day, the challenge that we find ourselves at is that this is all environmental injustice. And so how do we make it right? We're not only looking for jobs. When you look at places like the Eastern Cape, like now we're saying we want to focus on the West Coast, we want to focus on the kelp forest. That is a way to bring in money again into the Western Cape. But some of the most vulnerable provinces in South Africa are the Eastern Cape and KZN. Those oceans are so incredibly productive. What are we doing there? The minute we say we're bringing in investment to protect the West Coast, the question says, how do those opportunities show up in beautiful places like the Eastern Cape and KZN? And also, how do we get those graduates to be a part of these programs? Because, again, when we talk ocean spaces, we talk, it's so hard, there's so many barriers to enter the space. And so even when you say marine sciences and the graduates, how do they get these opportunities? How do they move to Cape Town when there's so many challenges? And so as we look forward, I hope that we can say, even for all the things that we want to build, how are we bringing it back to the communities? Port St. John's, I'm sorry, as I close, typical place where we all go every single year. The world flies in to see the sardine run every single year. But Port St. John's does not even have a community pool for her children. And so what are we doing in the greater? We're saying we're protecting, we're saying we're creating opportunities. I'm asking the question that says, in the tangible, in the today, in the building for the future where we're not doing $1 a day issues, how are we building economies that help these communities thrive when these oceans are theirs? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it to anyone panel for the take. Okay, over to you now.
All right, I'll start. I'll start with Mr. Makobela's, how do we tap in the 30,000 unemployed graduates into the oceans economy? So, and also just to answer you, my sister, how do the SMMEs get involved and the entrepreneurs? I'll answer that part because you asked another question. As I was just sitting here and I was watching Dr. Yanez, right, video, as SMMEs, we become very innovative and as business people, I could already pinpoint which CETA could partner and how many youth would benefit from looking at a video like that. Remember, some CETAs are always looking for projects. I get bombarded with CETAs asking our company to place and find work for the grads. And I must say that we are making progress to employ them and use our network to place them in. So as I was watching that video, I could already see an EMISA, CETA. I could already see, unpack, who does diving. There must be young people who need to be in this program that are graduates, just by watching that. And I've got my notes there. And what would happen after that? You go and knock on doors, you build on relationships, you say there's a program like this. Some of the things, as a gentleman was saying, it's practical. We have to, and I'm talking from business, I'm talking practically from business, is that the solutions are not just us sitting here. The solutions are all of us going into writing emails to those places. For example, there's a bank that is here. There's some insurance companies that we've invited. It just took an email for us to say, we've received an invitation from Ocean20. Let's send an email. See if you can send your representative to come and join and call into action. And some of them are here. And when they listen to suggestions and things that are coming out, they also have their KPIs and strategy, and that's where alignment comes in. Practically what I'm saying is that some things require us to go, send emails, follow up, practically bring a project, bring the cost, bring the benefit, and that's how you tap in. Unpack the ecosystem of the Oceans20. And what is great right now, we are coming right, we are taking over. I mean, we're working together with Brazil. Brazil has just presented what they've done. And we have an opportunity to co-create, bring those proposals, partner with business and see what projects could come out. I'm already, by tomorrow, there's going to be a project and a concept note that we could send, put a cost to it, and see if it's going to be received by DSI, a business, and the teams of Oceans20. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
I'm first going to tackle the question about the issue of graduates and what can happen there, and then I'm going to come to the what's happening on the ground, basically. Sorry, let me do this. Speak from the heart, no more notes. If I say something controversial, sorry. It made me close my laptop. I can't necessarily speak for the big parts of government, but I do know that in KZN specifically, there is a wind farm project that is being developed at Gagasini, which is hoped to be launched in 2026. And a huge component and part of the social impact that came from that, which also made it a very different form of committing to the just transition process, was a purposeful investment by local government to make sure that the contracting that was involved with that was employing the local young people in the area. Part of that was graduates that came from UKZN, but also local young people who are not necessarily graduates of got that traditional background. So that's just an example I can think of where perhaps the successes are. But I think the issue of graduates is speaking to the bigger issue of what we have locally here in South Africa, which is this big pain in the butt of unemployment. Statistics did come out that the biggest issue that young people find, there's just 3 of them. It's the issue of unemployment, the issue of education, and the issue of security. And the irony is that the issue of climate change and anything that is related to climate change is only considered as priority number 12 in terms of the concerns that young people have. And yet, there is solutions to all 3 of the issues that young people have in South Africa that is in the climate space. However, the issue has everything to do with the decision makers, as the point was made over here, is how do decision makers actually make the decisions and what is the information that they have to make said decisions. We had a science to policy conference yesterday, and this became a particularly important point of discussion, and it also then touches on the point that you had. Here, if we bring it closer to home in South Africa, and this was something that I think was the U20 in Brazil, where it was the local mayors that all came together. We know the standard line, beautiful policies, horrible implementation, right? But there's never been like an actual investigation on where does that implementation issue actually break down. And with the data that has come out, it has become very evident that the breakdown is not necessarily something that is in national policy, but it has everything to do with local governments and how local governments implement the budgets that are given towards them, and how information that is given to them and how they are taught on what is important. Matters of the ocean are not necessarily of priority if the biggest thing you are concerned about as the municipality or as local government is making sure that people can eat in your area, instead of someone coming to tell you about how there's things underwater that are on fire. Doesn't compute, right? And so that also then still comes back to the taxonomy conversation of what does it actually mean when we're talking about this blue economy conversation? And secondly, how is the information taken to the decision makers in a way that they can also understand? Because the decision makers are the last step between these local communities that we are talking about, the overarching global goals that we have. So the SDG goals are fantastic goals, but they are global goals with the expectation of them being nationalized, but most importantly, they should be localized as well. And where there is a breakdown in the local communication, there's a breakdown in the impact for community.
And a part of that has to do with the quality of leaders in the local sector, number one, but also number two, what types of investment go into that. And that's why I think the U20 engagement was perhaps one of the most important ones that happened in Brazil, where it went beyond the national ministers and it said, let's talk directly to the mayors from across the world to find out what would be points that would be important to the communities for them. And herein lies the opportunity for then the Oceans20 to engage with those working groups in saying that we have found out that most communities have got this issue with unemployment. Here are some opportunity areas in the ocean space that are actionable for that to be answered through, if that makes sense. I also think your question is a bit more inward for South Africa. And unfortunately, because of the hierarchies that come with these particular spaces, it can be very difficult to specifically try to deal with it and say the Oceans20 is going to be able to solve this problem in the Eastern Cape in this way and so on and so forth. But that's where, again, the decision makers become quite crucial in the discussion of what type of information is being fed to them, do they understand it, and what do they do with it in helping that local community moving forward. But I'm happy to talk to you a little bit later on perhaps some of the other points that you had to. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that.
Okay, thank you. I think I've got a last question. If you can make it very brief, I think it's Odwa. He'll be the last.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's not a question. My name is Otto Mtati. I work for the South African International Maritime Institute. Just 3 points. One, we appreciate the platform because it helps us to collaborate more and build effective networks going forward. Because part of the challenge, as you can hear from the room, is that people just tend to work in different platforms. And hopefully one of the things that we'll do is to collaborate more. In order for us to promote the entry of SMEs into the sector, we did a study on the value chain analysis of the oceans economy, with the understanding that there would be a clear identification of opportunities so that those that are entrepreneurs could for themselves identify those opportunities. So our role is the laying out of the foundation, and those that are entrepreneurs will then utilize the instrument because it is available, and hopefully would have made it easier for an entry, for SMEs in particular. Those that are black-owned, those that are women-owned, and trying to address the transformation element of the oceans economy in the South African context. The second part of what we had determined, was not there, was a definition of the oceans economy in the South African context. And therefore, part of our work was to look at that part. So on the 14th of April, we have a seminar, perhaps just to unpack a bit on the definition, proposed definition of the oceans economy for the South African context. And then the second part of it is the size and the contribution of the oceans economy to the GDP. So that, as we move forward, we speak to something that we quite clearly understand. So those that are interested to understand, it's a hybrid session. Then the third element is on maritime awareness. We host quite a number of those with the intention that learners could get to understand the ocean and its impact from an earlier age. Because part of the difficulty is that, others would only after graduation that they come into contact with the possibilities offered by the oceans economy. So we've got a dedicated website called Dive In that lists all of the possibilities. It's also an app as well. And we're hoping to improve it as we go along, because what we're addressing is the ability of people to know about the oceans economy much earlier than what is happening at the moment. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Oda. Just to, okay, yes.
Just a brief comment on that, and I think the business sector is crucial for us to succeed as Ocean20. It's crucial for G20. The UN Global Compact, we have a network here in South Africa as well. Please engage with them, but the Secretariat here is, working directly with the private sector already. But we also collaborate with the B20 and other G20 groups. So we have to bring this together. And it's extremely important to understand the potential of South Africa blue economy. So that's very interesting what we just heard. I'm not an expert on South Africa, but it's a large economy. It's perfectly positioned in the world. Lots of trade go by or through South Africa, not for the African continent only, also for Brazil, India, and so forth. And there's a big transition going in energy, in shipping, and it will take lots of new talent, lots of new investments to drive this transition. And as a layman on South Africa's economy, I would say you're perfectly positioned to really take your share of this, especially now when we see today is April 2nd. It's what the US President calls Liberation Day, where he sets up tariffs to keep work at home. There will be more room for people who would like to work with a global economy and global trade without tariffs. So it's an opportunity, I think, to really drive this from South Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last word, Janice.
Thank you, Gilbert. I just want to leave my pitch on the table. Let the Ocean20 be a beacon for your navigation to foster a new era of ocean-centered solutions for prosperity, for conservation of Mother Nature. I think that it's a fertilized ground for you to proceed and embark. And don't forget to bring Brazil along with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janice, and thank you very much. And colleagues, just to also indicate that the idea, I think, that has been put forward here today, particularly of ocean actions, it's not a question of we have solutions. Remember what's happening. I think if you can get some more information, I think, I'm not sure if the flyer, because there is an invitation, an open invitation for any industry, any sector, to partner, to come up with new ways of new actions. How do you derive actions? Because, to be honest, we don't have, everyone here on the panel don't have the answers. But then hence, I ultimately initially ask you a question to say, what do you think? So you can also pose that your views to the colleagues at Zion, and also if you need to find out, I think we'll try and find during our mingling, give you some more information in terms of how to partner, because we need partnership. We need people to lead initiatives so that they can lead actions, because they don't have all the capacity to do all those things. There were certain areas that they have identified, but then we said we are open. And the reason why we decided to embark on ocean actions is that, yes, there's too much lethargy on discussions. I mean, we all know that we talk, but then now Brazil came up with recommendations. But then we cannot go back and then now also start discussing on those recommendations. We need to start actioning them. But then how do we do that? We need you to be able to partner with us in terms of action. And thank the panel. Thank you very much for your insight. Well, thank you very much. May I sit down? I think I'll call over Juliet to do the wrap-up.
Okay, while the panel are getting back to their seats, thank you again. That was really engaging. I really wish we'd had longer. But the great thing is a lot of the panel is still going to be here. So just quickly, heartfelt thanks to Brazil for sharing the torch with us. Under their leadership, Oceans20 took critical steps in shaping the global blue economy, fostering collaboration and ensuring that the ocean remains a source of opportunity and sustainability for all. South Africa proudly carries this momentum forward as we embark on our own Ocean20 journey. We've heard that our G presidency's guiding principles are solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Solidarity reminds us that the oceans know no borders. Its health and its future are shared responsibilities. Equality calls on us to ensure that the blue economy does not leave anyone behind, whether coastal or inland, developed or developing. All communities must have access to the opportunities the ocean provides. Sustainability is our duty to safeguard marine ecosystems, to innovate responsibly, and to build ocean economies that can thrive for generations to come. So today's just the beginning. As we've heard, Ocean20 South Africa is a call to action for science, policy, industry, business and communities to work together in shaping a just, prosperous and resilient ocean future. But let's be clear, the ocean cannot simply be a topic of discussion. It must have a voice at the table too. As we move forward, Ocean20 South Africa is not just about policies or investments. It is about ensuring the ocean itself is heard, respected and protected. Our actions must reflect its vital role in our economies, our climate and our future. So let this be our commitment to work together, to listen to people, to listen to the indigenous knowledge and to listen to scientists, to centre equity and to make sure that the ocean is no longer a silent witness, but an active force in shaping global decisions. So I just want to finish off by saying thank you to Tammy. You've put an incredible amount of work into pulling together all these people. And thank you to Nicole and to Safia and the team. And your work has only just begun. I'm sorry. Thanks to Eric and the UN Global Compact for being willing to be part of this journey with us. I thanked Brazil. And also, I'm just an ocean scientist, but it's because of my new niece, Yanga, who can now call me Tani, it seems, and to people like Knox and everyone else in the room, that I learn something new every day. And it's an incredible opportunity for me, so thank you. Without you guys and without your voices, I think this would be a very different room. And we're going to have a quick group photo up here, then lunch. Gilbert said this is just the beginning. Please get in touch. You've got the link in the ocean document that Tammy sent out. Email us, continue the conversation. Hall 10 is going to be available, and we will go and sit up there for a while after lunch to facilitate if anyone wants some space for more discussions. Knox has already said there's a lot of businesses in the room. We really want to engage with you. There's lots of different industries. So please have some lunch, and then if you can, go up to Hall 10 if we're going to, I don't know if they're going to be allowed in. We'll have to just, okay, or congregate outside Hall 10. And we'll make a plan. But look out, Tammy, Nicole, Safia, Melissa, are you here? Can you just, if you see, there we go. We're around to help facilitate discussions. And thank you very much to the panel, and again, thank you to all the speakers. We really look forward to engaging further. And the photo, yeah, we're going to have the photo here. For the speakers, let's get everyone quickly, and then the speakers. Okay, is that okay? So everyone quickly, we're going to try and do a photo on the stage. Someone shut the door so no one can leave till we've got a photo.